conversations that scare us and make us uncomfortable are often the conversations that we need to have. But oftentimes, they're the conversations we don't want to have, because sometimes they're confrontational. For me, that topic was feminism. But it hadn't started that way. I grew up in a household that promoted questions. This meant I was able to look at any area of interest, ask questions, do research, and develop my own point of view. However, my worldview was naive. I grew up in a small community, so issues outside of that community I knew very little about. However, that didn't stop me by being frustrated by the things I saw. I was first frustrated by the discrepancies I saw between male and female students, the earliest example being the dress code. I was also frustrated by the lack of equality I saw in the LGBTQ+ community experienced. From there, I began to want to understand issues that I didn't have personal experience with. From that research, I learned about horrific problems in our country and around the world, such as child brides, violence, and financial inequality that doesn't just impact those of gender, but also because of race. From there, I began to hear the personal stories of people who were struggling, from men who struggled to feel masculine in a society that demanded hypermasculinity, to transgender, non-binary, and gender-fluid individuals who struggled to have their chosen pronouns respected, not to mention the violence they experienced. From there, I began to want to understand more about what feminism was, as I was often met with the question, why is it all about women? According to the New World Encyclopedia, Charles Fourier, a French philosopher, coined the term feminism in 1837. He didn't mean to directly indicate females, but rather the feminine, as the feminine things in his society were often put lower. This is still applicable within our own society, as the feminine often has less power, less financial equality, and men who do feminine things are often put lower. Another important distinction that Fourier makes is that feminism is for everyone. It isn't about lowering men, but rather bringing females and the feminine to the same level. Another important distinction that Fourier makes is that feminism's goal shouldn't just be to achieve equality, but also equitable treatment. This means that things don't have to be completely equal, but they do need to be made fair. For me, this seemed like a no-brainer. Who would be against a word that meant fairness? Yet I was brutally surprised my junior year when I was doing a persuasive speech in my public speaking class and chose to do the topic feminism. My teacher asked me whether I wanted to debate the pro or con, and that question confused me as I wasn't sure how someone could debate the con. Yet I realized how naive I had been when I passed out the surveys and discovered it wasn't 1 or 2 students in my class who opposed feminism, but nearly 1/2 were hostile to the subject, while the other half were indifferent. This became an awakening point for me. I realized I had idealized and simplified the whole situation. It wasn't so obvious, and it wasn't so cut and dry. Many in my class opposed feminism and what it stands for, while the other half hardly even knew what feminism meant. After that experience, I became a little uncomfortable, but that didn't stop me from wanting to learn more about the issues and what feminism was really about. That led me nearly 3 months after giving this speech to attend the Women's March in downtown Dayton. I screenshotted the picture off the Dayton Women's Alliance page and sent it to all of my friends. Some of them had work, some of them had parents who forbade them, but finally I found a friend who was free and willing to go with me. The event truly blew me away as I watched the courthouse square fill with individuals wearing pink, holding signs, listening attentively to the speakers. That day, I learned more about the issues, met new people, and saw a stronger community outside of my own. That experience prompted me to write an essay for my high school's literary magazine, The Inferno, as I wanted to explain why I participated in this movement, as many in my community were confused as to why I would do such a thing. And that brings me to the next point in this conversation that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, and that's about my community. My community, after all, is where my friends and family are. It's my home. It's supposed to be my safe place. But this topic requires me to stand back and see myself as coming from that community, but not necessarily being just like that community. And that can be really scary. But I have come to a place where I can no longer avoid it. If I am going to continue to grow and become the person I am, then I need to understand that. There are many people in my community who are very supportive of me, but there are those who oppose feminism and what it stands for. Since I now identify as a feminist, that means these individuals directly oppose me. And that can be a really tricky situation, as oftentimes I felt as if I had to serve as the sole representative for the word, to not be the feminine enemy or stereotype they were expecting. However, despite all of this, I've become I start to become more confident in my identification of feminism, my definition has become more nuanced. I understand that feminism is about achieving equitable treatment, not just equality. They want for everyone, no matter their differences, to be treated with respect and be given the right to live a life of their choosing. I find this understanding makes me stronger. I'm not going to be apologetic about a movement that is working to better the lives of millions around the globe. And rather than feeling like I need to convince others, I'll continue to grow more and more secure in my own beliefs. Perhaps you're like me. Perhaps you're just beginning to have some thoughts that differ from everyone and everything you grew up with. And like me, you may be overwhelmed by the enormity of the problem and think, what can I do in the face of such a global injustice? These issues often come down to things I can't change, like global leaders or world policies. It's easy to get caught up on a national level and not see those struggling within your own community. One of the best things you can do is vote. And if you can't vote, don't be disheartened. Spend the time that you have now to research the topics that you're interested in. And just because you can't vote doesn't mean you can't be involved. I, for one, was involved in the Women's March when I was 17. This experience allowed me to learn more about myself, my community, and truly what feminism was. We can still be respectful and demand equitable treatment from those who directly oppose our views. That's what feminists do, and I proudly say I'm a feminist. Thank you.